Every year, more than 1 billion pounds of pumpkin end up in landfill. All that precious farmland and labor going straight to climate pollution really irked me every Halloween. So when I saw this TikTok farmer's pumpkin wine that involved just poking a hole, toss in some rice wine starters, and letting everything ferment in the pumpkin itself, I can't not give it a try. To those that think this doesn't pass the smell test, theoretically, this could work like how sake is made, where the starter inoculates rice with mycelium that turns starch into sugar, which wild yeast or wine yeast can then use to ferment into alcohol. I have a video on making very sweet rice wine with no added sugar. The process is borderline magical, which leaves me very open-minded. For my test, I used an apple core so I can plug the seal back in after funneling in the wine starter. Everything had been heat sanitized ahead of time to avoid contamination. My biggest concern here is that, unlike cooked rice, the raw pumpkin won't have its starch gelatinized, which could really impair saccharification. I wobbled my pumpkin around for the starter to scatter around and stored it in my garage, which has temperature in the 70s Fahrenheit or low 20s Celsius. In about 5 days, my pumpkin did soften. It has juice leaking out, and the handle falls right off as I try to lift it. For a pumpkin this size, the fermentation didn't go through the whole fruit. Yes, pumpkin is a fruit, a berry in fact. There's a trivia that will impress no one. I scooped out the softened flesh and pressed out the juice. It looked and smelled great, but tasted nothing like rice wine. I had my doubts about using the starter on an uncooked crop. Traditional recipes would always cook the crop first to gelatinize the starch, to facilitate saccharification. While the mycelium thrived in the pumpkin, the sugar conversion was not nearly at the level found in fermented cooked rice. The wine was neither sweet nor boozy, with quite a bit of acidity. I felt duped. But because I was committed, I baked the unfermented, firm part of the pumpkin, which is a majority of the flesh. After an hour in the oven, the kitchen smelled like I've been baking cookies. There was more caramelization than I would have expected. In fact, this really made me question the whole concept of, quote, carving pumpkin. The skin peels right off, and the flesh is just like roasted butternut squash. Maybe a tad more fibrous, but not nearly as coarse as brown rice or whole wheat, which we consume without any complaints. So why is the pumpkin something to throw out? By the way, toasted pumpkin seed tastes so much better than store-bought, to my surprise. I will definitely be toasting these every year from now on. I pureed my pumpkin, planning to use them like potatoes in vodka. This time the starch should be sufficiently gelatinized, so we should get plenty of sugar from it. Before I used all the puree, I gave it a taste and decided it is too delicious to all be potentially wasted in a test. I guarantee you most people who told you these pumpkins aren't for eating didn't speak from personal experience. In puree form, you can't even tell that it is more fibrous. It tastes just like butternut squash puree. So I set aside half of the puree and used just about 1 kilo for the wine. I kept the wine starter ratio similar to rice wine and got rather mixed result. After 3 days, the mycelium thrived, and in 5 days, the puree tasted very boozy. But it is still very thick and nothing like rice wine, which turns soft and liquidy in 3 to 5 days. My takeaway is pumpkin puree is probably more thickened by fiber rather than starch, so fungal digestion of starch didn't thin out the mixture nearly as much, which makes this the perfect health food to add to your diet. It makes excellent soups. Just saute some mayapoi until fragrant. Add stock and puree. It tastes great, chunky and smooth. Feel free to add cinnamon, nutmeg, or curry powder to taste. Alternatively, you can take some puree, fold in some flour and parmesan, and make pumpkin gnocchi. Go easy on the flour if you don't want your gnocchi gummy. I wouldn't exceed 50% of puree weight. It's okay if the dough is sticky, so long as it holds together. Just thoroughly flour the work surface. Scoop out a small dollop, flour your hands, and gently roll it out. Boil in small portions so they float up fast. and fry in butter with some sage. You can also mix the puree with equal weight mochi flour and make pumpkin mochi. I have a video on that too. Roasted pumpkin puree works just as well as butternut squash puree. The point is, no, you don't need a ton of sugar and cream just to make a mediocre pie out of jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. Nor is it a lot of prep work if you just roast big chunks with the skin on and peel them after cooked. It is very filling as a savory dish and delicious as a dumpling. While the pumpkin wine is truly not worth trying, I'm glad the clickbaits got me to really cook and use a whole pumpkin. Even if you're no tree hugger, wouldn't you like to not waste your own money? You paid for this delicious produce. There's no reason not to eat it if you can. If you enjoy videos that test out trendy recipes for you, or if you simply dread food waste and like to see things repurposed, please like and subscribe if you haven't. If you've made this style of pumpkin wine with success, please tell me in the comments how you made it work. Thanks for watching. See you next time.